I don't know.
Uh-oh, how do I get back to?
We're live now.
You're live now.
How do I get back to you guys? I don't know how to use a Mac.
There's usually buttons that are red, yellow, green. You could probably minimize the Facebook one and you'll probably be back at your Zoom.
Where is my Zoom?
It might be down the bottom of the bar.
Hang on.
And we're live.
Well, hello, Sarah. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well.
So I guess I'm co-hosting now, considering other hosts.
I just can't see anything right now.
Oh, perfect.
Of live webinars. How do I? You're on, so stay over here. How do I get back to my? Oh, there. Thank you. Thanks, hubby to the rescue. So that pretty much sums up how my day's going. How are your days going, guys?
Not bad.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah. So for all of you who are watching tonight, if you are also having an incredibly bad day, pipe up, pour yourself a drink, sit back, get ready for some entertainment because we are here on the command post tonight. So welcome everybody. Laura says we're not live. Are we live? It says live on Facebook.
It says live. Yeah.
This is par for the course.
I don't know. We're live.
We're live. Okay.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Okay, we're gonna just say, yeah, we're live. We're good. Okay. So we are, hello, welcome to the Together We Stand command post today. I am Stephanie Shapiro, COO of the Together We Stand Foundation, and I am joined today by our CEO, Rick Seymour, and Sarah Rozema-Seaton from Big Red Bow. We are going to be talking about debunking the biggest military myths today. So thanks guys for joining me today. Sarah, thank you for lending us your expertise as always. And Rick, I'm pretty sure Rick just really liked being on the command post last week. And he's like, I want to be part of it too. He caught the like entertainment bug. He's like, can I please be on?
Something like that.
What are you bringing to us like tonight? What are you bringing to the table tonight, Rick?
I'm not really sure. Trying to fill in the air and the gaps in the conversation, if any. Here for moral support. And other than that, just here for a good time.
Well, I think we're going to have a good time. So thanks, Sarah, as always, for being here. Are you prepared to talk to us about all the craziest military myths that you've heard of? I have a few of the military myths that we've heard from our viewers. We asked people to send in what their biggest military myths are, but I'm sure you're going to have a whole bunch of extras up your sleeve at some point. I actually want to know, no, I'm not going to ask you yet. I want to ask you at the end of the show, just in case we cover one of the myths that you want to talk about. So
I'm scared. Like, what if
I know? This is like a pure test tonight. This is like a game show, and because this is going to be like a game show, no, don't use your crazy Aussie button.
Dude, this isn't like a matchmaker though, right? I don't have to guess her answer in advance or anything like that.
Well, I'm gonna. How about this? We're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna read it out, and then Rick's gonna say true or false, and then Sarah's gonna let us know if it was right.
Ooh, this is good.
Okay,
I don't know about
and then Sarah will explain what the correct answer is. So, and whoever's watching, give us a shout out from wherever you're watching from, and we will shout you back out. So, are we ready?
I was not nervous until right now. Now I'm a little bit.
You better get this right. You've been running this thing for a whole 6 months, so you've had. You should know some of these answers by now. Okay, myth number 1: military families are supported by taxpayer money.
I mean, large in part false.
Okay, Sarah, what do we think?
Okay, so there is a misconception that military families have, it's just like any other job. So there's no extra, like your groceries and your housing and those sorts of things don't get paid for just because you're a military family. So big myth. And I've heard that one before, but no, it is false.
And I'm just seeing we have somebody joining us from Cold Lake. So hi, Cold Lake. Welcome to the command post tonight. Okay, why do you think that that Canadians in general believe that military families are supported by taxpayer money? Where does that myth come from, do we think?
I think that derives from that there's housing code PMQs, which is traditionally there were married quarters. Most of them were built, and don't quote me on this, in the 50s or 60s or more, or maybe even the 40s. They're more wartime style housing, and most of them are located on different bases. Some bases have them and some of them don't, but traditionally, way back when, most people lived in military housing, which you still pay for. It's just a house that you basically rent, and that is on the base.
Okay. We're going to go through these quickly, I think, tonight. Military myth number 2.
Uh-oh.
Medical, dental, and childcare are provided by the military to military families.
False. I think the immediate spouse has access to some of those, but not to the extended family.
And the answer is?
Medical and dental is provided to the members. So the members actually get their medical and dental on base. For families, so the spouse and the kids, we all find our doctors in the economy, which is really, really challenging because some of the doctor wait lists are over 2 years, and we're only ever posted in a place for sometimes 2 years. So some families go for years and years without actually having a family doctor, which is challenging.
I have a question. Because of COVID, there's been a lot of telemedicine going on. Is that something that is more accessible to, and we're getting somebody from a camping ground near Renfrew. So hello from the camping ground.
Nice.
Is telemedicine becoming more and more prominent for military family usage? Like has COVID proven that this is something that we can successfully use within the military family community?
It's definitely something that they've introduced. There was something recently, so I actually haven't had to use it. I was lucky enough when we got posted back here, my family doctor from here, who I won in a doctor lottery, because there was literally a doctor lottery, was really, really nice and actually took our family back when we moved here. So I know quite a few people have been using telemedicine, and with, right now with mixed results. So I can't comment because I haven't used it myself, but it's definitely an option for families for sure.
Sorry guys, I'm just looking to see who else is posting to us. Okay, military myth number 3. Military families live on base and housing is subsidized.
I mean, I think that's a two-parter. I mean, not all military families live on base, so that's I guess false, because some do, but not all do. Depends on the location, and some housing can be subsidized, but definitely not fully subsidized and paid for. Okay. So I'm gonna say false on both. I guess if it's true false, I gotta go false both.
And the answer is?
It's a mixture of both, actually. So
a mixture of both doesn't mean you're right.
No,
I don't know. I mean, you didn't give me C as a mixture of both answer.
Okay.
The base housing is roughly the same as what is in the normal economy for the most part. But they do have, in some of the bases, they have what's called self-help housing. So it's a little bit subsidized for families that might need a little bit of a hand.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of both. So but generally, everything is the same as what you live on the economy.
Now, Sarah, sorry, Steph. I was just going to say, in some of those locations, though, like the PMQs, as you were talking about earlier, the cost for housing in comparison, the size of the unit that you might have or the house that you might have in comparison to living more locally, somewhere off base or a little bit further away, are they kind of apples to apples? Is it a little cheaper on base? I guess it would vary depending on where geographically you're located.
I haven't lived on boats. I had a little bit of something to fall down. I haven't lived on base since we were first married. We've often lived off base. we found it really comparable. So you can actually look online and actually see what the housing actually costs, but it's pretty comparable to, a three-bedroom PMQ is, roughly about $1,800, but they're pretty small actually. So it's roughly whatever the economy is. They try and keep it to about the same.
So I have a two-part follow-up question to that. Number one, why would some families choose to live on base versus live off base?
We've done a mixture of both as far as renting and buying. It depends on where you're going and how long you're going to be there for. Because sometimes, for example, our last house, we rented, but we rented because we were only there for a year. We're only posted there for a year. So coming in, trying to buy a house, getting settled, and then selling it in a year's time doesn't make a lot of sense. It really just depends. It depends on what the market is doing. Like if it's not a great market, then you might not buy because it's too risky.
Right.
So, and then some people love living in the PMQs because there's, you're with other military families and you get to meet each other. So it really depends on what your family need is and what, and what the economy is doing as well.
So my second question is, you look at the cost of housing in Toronto, you look at the cost of housing in Vancouver, Victoria, you look at the cost of housing in Halifax, Ottawa. It's not all comparable, right? It's not apples to apples. So what happens if you are on a military family budget, you have a one income or two incomes, and you're living in Halifax where perhaps the cost of living is less expensive, and then you are posted to someplace like Victoria where the cost of living, either buying a house or renting a PMQ, is significantly more expensive, but you don't really have control over where you're being posted to. How does the family make do in situations like that when the cost of living has now gone up exponentially?
So the base level is based on Ottawa. So that is kind of the base level of their cost of living. If you're, say, in Toronto and you're living in a certain area that's close to and Toronto is really expensive in comparison to like some of the other bases, then there's the member will receive what's called PLD, post living differential, and it gives you a little bit of extra to compensate for that, but it has to be more than what the cost of living is in Ottawa.
Right. But is it to try to sort of equalize and balance out the scales depending on where you're living at any given time?
Yeah, because you can't gauge that. My husband and I were just talking the other day that we would have been, if we'd stayed here after we bought our first house, we would be mortgage free next month.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Which, the chances of us like staying in the same house is not, people definitely still move, but I mean, when you move every 2 years, it definitely has its toll.
Yeah. Okay, I have questions actually coming in from individuals watching. Someone is joining us from Winnipeg, so hello out there in Winnipeg. Here's a military myth that we need to address. This one, I don't know who it comes from, so Laura, maybe let us know who shared this question. Canada's, true or false, Canada's military does not deploy like the Americans do.
With the Americans, or as long as the Americans?
I think it's sort of implied like they don't deploy the same amount or to the same place, same type of places, or have the same kind of missions that the Americans might. So I think they're trying to compare the Canadian military to the US military.
If that's the question, obviously our operational tempo is far less, I would guess, than the Americans. We often deploy to a lot of countries that Americans are in and have gone to, but we're not supporting every single operation that the Americans are involved with. So I would say that, I guess that would be true because we don't deploy the same way that the Americans do. And obviously certain that the recognition isn't there as much as the Americans have, that's for sure.
All right, let's go to our expert panelist, Sarah.
Oh, I can't speak 100% on deployed missions. I can say that we're deployed and we're out doing more missions than I think what the Canadian public actually thinks we are. I think often, like during Afghanistan, there was a lot of media and people realized that we were there and there was a lot of support. I don't think people realize that we are deploying and out in as many places as what we are. And it may not be to the same extent, but we still have troops going out on the regular basis.
You know, it might be interesting. I mean, I don't know if we could figure this out at some point, but from a proportional standpoint, right? To see, you know, based on a percentage of troops and the amount of deployments per capita, sort of, it might be interesting to see from a percentage standpoint. But there's no way it's as frequent. But to the locations, I think sure, absolutely. There's been many joint missions.
Can you clarify something for us? I have a number of individuals that ask me on a regular basis, individuals who don't know a lot about, actually, I'm not going to ask that yet because sorry, I'm going to interrupt myself. I'm not going to ask that yet because I think that's going to go with one of my other questions. So sorry, go ahead.
Can I interrupt you? So one of the things that I can tell you, because my husband's deployed both with the United States Air Force and he's deployed multiple times with the Canadians. I have a lot of respect for the Americans, especially the American military families, because they don't have some of the same benefits as what we do. So if you're deployed on a 6-month deployment in Canada, you get most of the time, because everything has its own little nuances, but most of the time you get what's called an HLTA. So you get a break in the middle and you get to come home, or you can fly somewhere and your family gets to see you. With the USAF, they don't actually get that. So they actually, most of them deploy for longer periods of time, but they don't get that break in between to come home. So yeah, if you're American, then hats off to you, because you guys are.
I almost see it as like, on one hand, it sounds like they don't get the same benefits. On the other hand, I know that they get significantly more recognition from their fellow countrymen.
Exactly. Absolutely. When we lived down there, the Americans were super supportive of their military, and their bases are amazing. So they really take care of their families. And I mean, they have a Walmart, basically the equivalent of a Walmart on the base, which you would never see here.
Right. That's amazing.
Well, that's part of the reason that we're here, isn't it? To try and amplify that acknowledgement.
That's right. So we're gonna change the narrative a little bit. Okay, let's move on to military myth number 4.
Uh-oh.
This is a hard one. Okay.
I'm 3 for 3, by the way. Once Sarah clarified that there was a little bit of a subsidy there.
Wishy-washy. I'm not that's sure about this. But sure, we'll say sure, you're winning, Rick. All serving members have PTSD and families have to learn to live with this.
Oh.
I know. That's a hard one. Because I know we've heard from a lot of people that that's what they think the narrative is.
I mean, I'm going to say false. Not all men or women have PTSD. Certainly PTSD is a very difficult thing to deal with, and its diagnosis and all the stresses and trauma that come with it. I mean, we're still learning a lot about and how to reintegrate individuals back into, I guess, civilian life. But I don't think it's true by any stretch that everybody has PTSD. I think so. My answer is going to be false on that one.
All right, Sarah, where are you going with this?
I'm going with false too. So not everyone has PTSD just because they've deployed or those sorts of things. It's a very, very real thing. It's military members, especially ones that deploy to certain regions, are much more susceptible to it for sure. And hats off to the members that go and do the jobs that most people wouldn't or couldn't be able to do. But it's not everyone, and there's some really good support systems for members. So it's members that do struggle with PTSD, a lot of them are still serving because they have the support systems from the CAF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like, we had a very interesting story, and I'm trying to remember exactly where we heard it. I think it was my father who heard the story. He was speaking with a serving member. And this serving member did not officially go through any type of PTSD, did not have any specific trauma necessarily that they faced. They were mentally quite healthy, still actively serving. But they looked at PTSD from a very different angle. And I'm curious to hear your take on this, Sarah. And I won't hold you as the expert in this. I'm just curious to hear your opinion, or I would be curious to hear Eric's opinion. But there was this notion that every member who has served um, has something that sits with them, that stays with them through their service. And I want to say this very, very carefully, because I don't want to put it out there that every member who has served has PTSD, because I think that is absolutely the wrong narrative. That is a narrative that a lot of active members and veterans do not want anybody to feel that that is sort of the overarching stereotype, because that's certainly not the case. But there is a sense of initial trauma, from what I'm understanding, when you do serve and you go through your training and you are told that you have to go through combat. You have to change your mindset to know that you are going to have to endure potential danger while you're out in sort of foreign territory. And I think that's such an interesting, do you know where I'm going with this? Like that maybe it's not PTSD, but there is a total shift in your mindset when you're being told, okay, you're going to go into active combat now, or you have to be prepared at any moment to go into active combat. There's got to be something in your internal sort of mindset that shifts slightly when you're being told it's okay to go and do this, or you're trained to go and do this because you're going to go off and protect our country. I feel like there's got to be something that sits with an active member or a veteran, even if you haven't endured trauma along the way, to know that that's part of your training.
I think the biggest shift that, and I mean, I met my husband when I was young. I just finished college. One of the biggest things that I see with members, and once again, this is not an expert, and this is just my experience, is I think because of what they do and what they see, one of the biggest shifts that I see is that a member is sometimes a little more black and white, but they value what they value a little bit more than, and you don't take for granted like some of the, you don't sweat the small stuff as much as what, little things normally irritate people. It could be something really simple, but they tend to kind of brush it off. And family is extremely important, and also friendships. And it's like having a whole bunch of brothers and sisters. Like, you can fight with each other, but heaven help the person from the outside that does. But if you need anything, I could pretty much call up anyone, and I may not have spoken to them in months, and they will, shift heaven and earth to help you out.
Their priority, they just seem to have their priorities really, really straight. They know what they value. They know what's important to their hearts. And it's true. You're right. It's quite black and white, as opposed to perhaps some individuals who haven't served, where, their priorities in life haven't yet been set.
It could be as simple. We were in Ottawa, and I remember I got a stomach flu, but I had to list a house, and my husband was deployed, and one of the guys that was his roommate in college came over and painted my ceiling because it needed to be done because the agent's like, oh, you've got to fix that. So, and he worked all day. So he was at work at 6 and finished at like 6:37, and then came around and picked up the paint on the way and painted my ceiling because I was not in. I was a little green.
That's awesome.
So
I have some other questions here. Okay, true or false? Military children get free tuition to university.
Wait, sorry, I wasn't supposed to laugh there, was I? I'm going to go with false on that one. I mean, if that's the case, I'm, certainly putting my kids into the military as soon as they can get there. But no, I that's absolutely false. I wish it were the case.
And
I'd like to know where to apply for that. My number one was to go to med school. So anyone that wants to pay for her,
I mean,
lovely.
Does that cover post-grad too? Because law school, maybe writing your MCATs, whatever.
Okay, so that's a big fat false.
That's a big fat false.
All right. Let's see. Okay. This one says true or false. It is easy to be reposted as a family. The government takes care of all changes. Sorry, it's hard to keep a straight face for that one.
No, I'm just I'm wondering if there's going to be a true one that comes out at some point. I can't tell you from the amount of families that I've been privileged to meet coast to coast that are serving members. And when I say serving members, I mean their spouses and their kids as well, because you better believe it that they serve too. They just don't wear the uniform. Having to move from province to province, especially if there's a language barrier, which we know as a bilingual country that can happen. In living from East Coast to West Coast is very different, and certainly in some places in between. So hats off to these families, these kids that they don't have a choice. They don't sign up for this. The parent has a choice and the spouse has a choice, but the kids don't. And they're resilient beyond anything. They go to 4 or 5 different schools, always the new kid. But sometimes I feel like they wear it like a badge of honor. I've spoken with a lot of kids that kind of are proud of the fact that they're on this adventure, and that their mom or dad served. So I think it's lovely, but it's certainly not something that's easy. And that's definitely something that we need to help educate Canadians about.
I was just looking for a yes or no.
I gave you a false a while ago, but I just had to get that in there.
False and Sarah, what's your take?
I don't think I can match that.
It was nice.
Definitely not. It's you have to, hats off that you don't have to do the same waiting period as what we used to. We used to have to wait 3 months, say for OHIP, for your health benefits. So hopefully no one got sick in that time. But it's definitely there's a lot of waiting in line and changing your healthcare numbers and all of those sorts of things every single time.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to mine before we go back to some of these. Military myth. I mean, technically it's not number 5 because I've been going back and forth, but my number 5. Military spouses cannot work because they're constantly being posted.
Oof.
It's a bit of a
military spouses can't
trick
work.
Question.
I mean, yeah. I'm going to go false. I'm going to stay with consistency and say false. They can work. Oftentimes, they can't get jobs that they're qualified for because their designations don't transfer across province, or they're overqualified for a role that's hiring if they haven't worked in 2 years or whatever it may be. So, can they work? Yes. Can they do the jobs that maybe they're best suited for? I don't know. But hopefully we can figure some of that out. So I'm going to just go false again. Sorry, that was a false and. I'll just stick to one word.
I think he needs the buzzer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I need the hook for him. So let's go back to military spouses cannot work because they're constantly being posted. So Sarah, where do you sit with this? And I think
military families
are a loaded question.
I know. Military families are often underemployed, which is part of the reason why I actually started my own company, and everyone that works with me, I say with me instead of for me, they're all military or military affiliated, and they're across or RCMP. So, and they're across the country, which is great because it gives people meaningful employment. Plus, it doesn't, for most jobs, it doesn't really matter as where people are, as long as the work gets done. So, is it difficult? Absolutely. For some people's careers, it's not something that works really well. So some careers work better in a transitional environment than others. So we're seeing a lot more spouses actually join as reservists so that they can move with their partners, because there's a little bit more opportunity to move together.
That's really interesting.
There are, and also I might say as a silver lining that comes out of COVID here is that, to Sarah, your point, we're seeing a lot of people now change their philosophy about how they work and where they work. And if anything potentially positive can come from this, is that people can work remotely. They can be trusted to do work from wherever they are, no matter at what time of day either. It's about the results, not necessarily always about the process, not in all cases. And there's some really great companies out there that we're in talks with, working with, and trying to put together some things down the line. And I don't want to open up too much, but some of our team and those that work with us are really passionate about tackling some of these larger issues. And I think there are some great companies out there that understand that active members and their spouses and veterans, and there are a lot of rules and opportunities out there for individuals with military background. That includes the families. So hopefully in 2021, we'll be able to start exploring a little bit more of that.
Well, a lot more families are doing IR now, I've noticed too, and that's where families actually live apart from each other, and depending on where you are, you just commute to each other, which is, it's not ideal, but it's also possible, and it's just a way of working around some of those challenges. And we've done that, lived in different places, and we will probably be doing that for our next posting as well, so that our kids have consistency with where they go to school, because they've been to quite a few schools now, but also it's a little bit more consistency for me for work too.
I have a fun question here, Sarah. This one actually is very relative to I should say
she's blood relative, or
sorry, relevant. It's one of those days, guys. Just
it's Monday.
Okay. True or false?
Uh-oh.
One of the perks of having a family member in the Air Force is getting to fly in a military aircraft.
True.
Oh, she jumped right in there.
So there's something called Pri-5, which there's a downside to this. So Pri-5 is some of the flights are sometimes opened up to families. It depends on what cargo they're flying and where they're flying to, but sometimes there's flights that are going to Europe, and you can jump on them if they don't have dangerous cargo. It's just got to be it's not all the time. The only thing is sometimes the flights don't go back to come and pick you up, so you have to work your way, or if their mission changes, you may get stuck in a European country eating cheese for a week.
I'm okay with that.
That doesn't sound too bad, actually.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Do they land the plane though? Do you jump out the back?
Is that what you're saying? Throw your luggage out and
just hurl it off the back in Toronto,
and
pull the cord.
No.
Okay.
And it's not the most luxurious flying.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you need.
There's no in-flight movie.
There needs to be a warning that comes with the aircraft. That while it's awesome that you get to fly on the military aircraft, I have seen the curtain that encompasses the aircraft restroom, and I'm not getting on a European flight for that. Either that, or I would have to dehydrate myself severely for like a week before that.
Oh, I forgot that you saw the.
Yes, I got the tour, and
it's a lovely curtain.
I mean, the rest of it would be fine. Like the fact that like the rest of the flight would be totally fine. I think it'd be really cool. It's just the facilities that perhaps you find wanting more.
It does come with a meal. It's a little box lunch, and it's got a couple of sandwiches in there and a couple of cookies. It's very carb loaded, but no, you would be fine if you had to go. But yeah. And not all the planes are like those too. So the military has Airbuses and other planes, but yeah, it's we flew the Herc. We flew on the Herc to Yellowknife to see some of our friends, and it was a very quick trip. So it's an 8 hour plus journey to get up there, and we stayed for 2 nights and then did the 8 hour journey home. But it was an experience. It's well worth it. There's lots of room. You can take a nap on a pallet of stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. I think it'd be a really cool experience. It's just like I said, the facilities. Okay, let me go over here. Oh, okay, I like this one. Military myth number 6. The CAF is no longer in Afghanistan, so members are no longer serving. In other words, it must be nice having your husband home all the time.
I mean,
it's lovely.
Do I have to answer that, or?
Okay, so let's just break it down. So the CAF is no longer in Afghanistan, so members are no longer serving.
That's,
in other words,
true that they're no longer in Afghanistan, but like, it's false because they still are serving.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, members also don't get paid overtime, so it's definitely a myth. So I
think
members still serve even though they're not in Afghanistan.
Right. I think the question for a lot of people is, if we're not in Afghanistan anymore, what does our military do? And therefore, why do our military families not get to see their spouses quite a number of days of the year?
Well, first off, let's be glad that they're still not in Afghanistan. So cheers to that one. There's a lot that's happening out there, and it may not be front page news. It probably should be more often than not, and especially when there's it's unfortunate that it's tragic. It's a tragic scenario that happens when the military unfortunately gets attention sometimes in this country, as we saw twice over the past few months. And it's tough that they're not getting acknowledgement for everything that they're doing. Sometimes you can't give acknowledgement, right, Sarah? I mean, sometimes you can't talk about every operation that's out there, but certainly we need to do a better job of highlighting where our soldiers are.
So I guess
and troops are.
Going back to the question, if hubby or wife is not at home all day, or son or daughter are not at home all day because we're not in active combat, what is it that our members are doing right now when they're deployed or they're at home? Because there's so much that they're doing that people don't know about. Can you talk about a few of the missions that they're possibly on?
They're not knitting sweaters
right and eating bonbons.
Not eating bonbons. I mean, this is something I probably should avoid a little bit, but you can go on the Canadian Armed Forces website and actually see some of the deployment regions that we're in. We're
in Kuwait, we're in Ukraine, we're in
a lot of places, and Canada has a big active peacekeeping role. So there's a lot of unrest in the world, and Canada's great about being there and making sure that that people are taken care of and countries are taken care of, or different police forces are being trained. So there's a lot of things that the Canadian Armed Forces.
And if we're not deployed abroad and we're home, what are our active members doing at home? Because before I joined TWS, I was unfortunately uneducated on this. I didn't realize how much they're doing within our own country.
Oh, they do a lot. So I mean,
well, there was 1,800 on Op Laser that just went into LTC facilities all across Ontario and Quebec, and I guess that wasn't really
all the flooding. They're the ones shoveling us out in all the terrible snowstorms.
Mm-hmm. Forest fires that they'll deal with, search and rescues, exactly. And there's a little thing called training. I mean, it's not like they're just preparing for a sales pitch here. They're not just worrying about getting their shirts ironed, although I believe they are pretty trim and proper when it comes to that sort of stuff. But when you're training for potential combat, you probably want to make sure that you're sharp and up to date, and you're working with the guys. When you're putting life in somebody else's hand and you're responsible for other people's lives, you better make damn sure you take that stuff serious. So I'd say there's a little bit of preparation involved.
And it goes back to, we have so many individuals that, again, say we're not in Afghanistan, so, they must be home all the time. Well, we have, how many spouses and parents have we spoken to that say that their children or their husbands or wives are gone 285 days of the year because their deployments are still 6 to 9 months long. We had Joe on this show not too long ago that talked about the fact that her husband is constantly training in Germany. She sees him, you know, every 10 days or so. You know, they're constantly in and out of the house. So I think it's so important for our fellow Canadian citizens to know that just because they're not in active combat doesn't mean that they are not actively serving us on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, we're also an alert, so that's a place that often gets forgotten. So, you know, in the summer, it's really important to make sure that alert has their supplies, so people are gone. It's a little more challenging now because there's the 14-day quarantine periods with people that are out the door all the time. So it's a bit of a different beast right now.
I'm going to go to our last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rick for a few minutes because I want to talk about a really fun initiative that we're actually launching tomorrow. But let's close it up with our last myth. And Rick, I'm not even going to send it over to you. I'm just going to send it right to Sarah. Military myth number 7. Military family life is hard, but you knew what you were signing up for.
Oh, this is totally off. Let me tell you a story.
How much time do we have?
So so my only military experience, I don't come from a military family or anything like that. So my only real military experience was what I saw in the movies before I met my husband. And then when I met him and we were dating, he was still in college. So that was my other military experience. Nothing can prepare you for what comes next. So it is nothing like the movies. I feel like I have a lawsuit against Tom Cruise because I watched something. There's got to be something there, but it's nothing that, I mean, it's a little bit, we're in a very different stage of my husband's career now, but nothing could have prepared me for leaving my country, moving here, dealing with snow, like seriously. But also what happened next. So we got married in the beginning of Afghanistan. So I didn't have any real experience about anything. And he was pretty much out the door soon after, and then deployment after deployment. And I was pregnant all of the time. So nothing prepares you for that. And you really have to either embrace it and you have to pivot, or it will pretty much make you fall apart because it's hard. It's hard raising kids, especially when you're new and you don't know anyone. And so to say that you knew, because you don't really know until you've lived it. And it's, as much as it's so joyful because of the friends and family and the friends that have become family that we've met along the way, and some of the experiences and some of the things that we've got through that were hard at the time that are just plain damn funny now, but it's you can't understand it by just seeing a movie or so you don't know.
You know what's amazing, and then we'll wrap this section up, but what's amazing to me about all the military families that we've met and all the military families that we've talked to is that there is this sense of like, no, we had no idea what we were signing up for. We did not sign up for this because we didn't know what this was. But what's incredible is that military families seem to have to endure way more challenges than most other Canadian families. You know, whether it be the postings or whether it be the prospective danger during a deployment, or whether it be reintegration constantly, whether it be waiting on, wait lists for healthcare or for schools, or they endure so much without realizing that this is what they signed up for. And yet they are so incredibly resilient, and the attitude behind all of these families is we do it. We survive.
You got this.
We're stronger. And we do it because it's the right thing to do, because we are here to serve our country. And it's just so unbelievable to see. And truly, some of the best people Rick and I have met in our passing time in this organization have been these military families, because I think that the military family value system, the core values, of just family stability, resiliency, and that overall I got this attitude is just unbelievable. So thank you to all of the families out there. You guys amaze us, and you guys are the reason that TWS exists. So thank you very much. And Sarah, thanks for being put on the hot spot. Rick, I'm reluctant to give you the microphone, but because I never know if you're in like okay. Sarah, do you have your buzzer handy just in case he goes off on a tangent? But Rick, we have a really exciting initiative coming up. I mean, it's already started. Military Family Appreciation Day campaign has already started. We've been educating everybody about what Military Family Day is and what military families look like. But tell us, starting tomorrow, what the next 18 days leading up to Military Family Appreciation Day look like.
All right. Well, no pressure here. No, MFAD is, well, as we know in the military, everything needs an acronym. So Military Family Appreciation Day, or MFAD as we call it. It's certainly the flagship program for our foundation moving forward. Operation Care Package is our kind of founding program, but MFAD, I believe, is our premier one. And really, I got to give kudos to a colleague of ours, Laura Grossman, who pushed this thing forward. It's a national holiday to honor and acknowledge our military families across the country. And we wanted to have events in person this year, but there's a little thing called COVID-19. And obviously that eliminated some of the events that we were going to be having in person at the MFRCs and on base. But we pivoted, and I'm really proud of our team that has spent a lot of time working on this. We have a wonderful group of volunteers who have put in so much work. And we've come up what we think is an online campaign that's going to be fun and hope to reach millions of Canadians across the country through a social media challenge that any Canadian can participate in with nothing more than a few things around the house and taking a few minutes at a time. It's not a donation campaign. It's an awareness campaign. We really just want to take some time to honor and acknowledge and amplify that acknowledgement for Canadian military families across the country and let them know that there are Canadians that stand with them and thank them for their daily sacrifices that they make. So hopefully we'll have some fun with it.
What is it?
As of tomorrow, we'll be doing the big reveal. But as you can see from my screen, I don't know if it's this side.
Yeah, that side.
All right, cool. Home Fort Challenge. So, the home is so important for all of us in Canada, and it's where the heart is, but it's where our family is. And in the military life, when your person is deployed downrange, whether it's foreign or domestic, that home fort or that fortress needs to be taken care of. And it's our military families that do that on a daily basis. The men, the women, the brothers and sisters, the husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, they take care of everything on the home front so that troop can be an efficient soldier and not have to worry about anything else but executing the task when they're deployed. So we thought to honor those who maintain the home fortress and take care of the home fort, we would build a home fort and have a challenge. So what we're asking is build a blanket fort, build a pillow fort. If your garage is your fortress of solitude, take a picture, write a note of thanks, record a video, share it online, thanking a military family. Just simply saying, we stand with you. We recognize the sacrifice you make, and we'd like to thank you for everything that you do. So hopefully we have some fun with it. We encourage you to not only...
Do you have the picture of us in the fort handy?
I might. You'd have to let me share my screen, but you'll see it all over social. It'll be fine. And, ultimately, this isn't about us. This is about the military families out there, and we want as many civilians as possible to be participating. We have what we believe is some great partnerships with some local and regional and federal and provincial politicians and some Canadian celebrities that'll be participating. So a lot of great stuff coming, but really it's build a fort, take a picture, share it on your social, and challenge your friends and family to do the same. Use the hashtag Home Fort Challenge, have some fun with it, and just say thanks. Take a few minutes to do it. I think it'll mean the world to our Canadian military families.
Awesome. So we're kicking that off officially tomorrow, September 1st. I can't believe tomorrow is September 1st. Where did the last 6 months go? And I say that during COVID. Like, I actually thought COVID was really slow at the beginning, but somehow, I don't know where the last 6 months have gone. So stay tuned, everybody. Look at our social media. We are going to be throwing Home Fort Challenge at you and launching that tomorrow. So look for us tomorrow morning, participate, share it, do it with your friends. It's something really fun that we can do to honor our Canadian military families. Sarah, Rick, thank you for sitting with me tonight and drinking with me tonight. And, Sarah.
Cheers, Steph. Another great show.
Yeah, no, it was great. Guys, stay tuned for 2 weeks from now, which is our official Military Family Appreciation Day week. And we are going to have some retired serving members come on and talk about the important role that their military families played while they were serving in the camp. So look forward to that. We'll do that in 2 weeks on September 14th. And in the meantime, I wish you all a very good night. Sarah and Rick, thanks.
See you guys. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks for watching.